Hello, this is Robert Baratheon with another TNV video. I'd like to describe today a little bit about what progressivism is and its concept of social justice. Those in the Gamergate movement have probably heard the term social justice warrior. This is a pejorative term for what I call progressivism. And social justice is really the driving concept and core of the American progressive movement. So I think in order to understand what Gamergate is up against, it's important to talk about what progressivism is and to understand exactly what social justice is. Progressivism is a political movement as well as a social movement that emerged in the United States at the end of the 19th century. So it's been around a very long time. This is not a new phenomenon, uh, although this is the first time progressivism has really made a move against gaming specifically. Video gaming, until about a decade ago, remained fairly apolitical. Uh, but since it's one of the last holdouts against political correctness culture and social justice tinkering, it was an attractive target for the progressive movement. So they've since invaded the medium and are trying to spread these concepts to gaming. So let's talk a little bit about what they're trying to do there. Progressivism is an extreme version of what economist Thomas Sowell called the unconstrained vision in his book, A Conflict of Visions, which is a great read that I would recommend to anyone if you want to understand the underpinnings of American political conflict, especially progressivism. The idea is the utopian notion that humanity is perfectible and that by removing all of the corrupting influences all around us in our environment, progressives believe implicitly, if not explicitly, that we can all mold ourselves into angels on earth and live in a paradise that's free of racism and sexism, inequality, and all forms of hardship, that we'll all just get along if we engineer our society the right way, and all these awful things can be buried and swept to the dustbin of history. They also believe that it's the duty of those who are more progressed in those ways to pull those who are less progressed. That probably means you and me and just about everybody who isn't as progressive along with them. Now, the idea of progress or humanity marching towards progress might not sound so horrible, and that's why they call the movement progressivism. It's a newspeak term if you've read 1984. But when you realize that their vision might not be the same as yours, or that maybe you like some things the way they are, or maybe the costs of fixing some problems is too high and we don't want to pay it. Uh, if you feel that way, and you have a classical or constrained view of humanity, uh, you recognize that we as humans are all flawed and that the flaws are inside of us. They don't come from our environment. By being a human being, you have flaws as a human. That the best way, if you're of the opposing view to progressivism, you believe the best way to control greed, poverty, cruelty, all sorts of human ills is through long-standing institutions like rule of law or separation of powers or a constitution or a fair justice system that applies itself equally to everyone. So if you're conservative, libertarian, moderate, or even a less extreme form of liberalism than progressive, you probably feel that way and you recognize that the perfect can become the enemy of the good, that life will be a different experience for everyone and always will be, and that some problems, whether it's gun violence or poverty, what have you, they won't have an ideal solution. There is not an ideal solution for everything, and that by acting as if there is and proceeding as if there is an ideal solution can lead to even worse problems. But progressives don't accept that response from us. Their answer is that they are going to pull you along towards their vision of progress, whether you like it or not. Whatever the costs are, that's just the cost of progress to them, and they're willing to pay that price. You might have heard the Machiavellian principle that the ends justify the means. Well, that's progressivism in a nutshell. They have an outcome, a vision in mind, and they'll do whatever they have to achieve it. In practice, they almost always fail to achieve their visions, but that the reasons for that are a discussion for another time. Social justice. Social justice is the concept progressives use to rationalize the what are often the enormous costs of what they call progress. The difference between justice and social justice is that traditional justice follows a set process for everyone. The process can be as nuanced as you want it to be, and the justice system is incredibly nuanced through case law and interpretations and exceptions and etc. But the important thing in traditional justice is that everyone plays by the same rules. The rules are set and open and transparent to everyone, so you know what the rules are ahead of time, and that everyone plays and that everyone is bound by the rules. Everyone. Social justice is the exact opposite of that premise. It's outcome oriented. The progressive decider determines an outcome in their mind that they consider fair, largely on arbitrary criteria. It could be based on race, sex, economic status, or what have you. And then they rearrange the process any way they have to so that the outcome comes out according to their vision. Sometimes social justice and justice can arrive at the same outcome. So if you believe that we're all protected equally under the laws, you may believe that people have a right to gay marriage. And social justice may also believe in a right to gay marriage based on the idea that that's the outcome that they want for gays to be able to marry. But they followed completely different processes to get there. Justice would evaluate the legal underpin and moral underpinnings and our institutions and arrive there, but social justice would retrofit whatever they have to reach the outcome. So social justice isn't really about any particular position; it's how you get to the position. And these two notions are not compatible at all. They are diametrically opposed and cannot be instituted together. Because often a process will lead to a different outcome than what the progressive judge wants. So if you imagine going to the court where social justice is applied instead of justice, we can see what the problems are here. A white person might get a different sentence from a black person simply for being a different race because of the concept of white privilege for exactly the same crime. A man accused of a crime by a woman could have the rules of evidence changed around just for his particular case for some reason, whether it's male privilege or just based on other circumstances. The rules by which the court follows could be changed so that the outcome comes out differently. And then they could be changed back in the next case if everything's exactly the same except the woman's accusing a man. So, and we see this play out with concepts like affirmative action or progressive stacking or all or subsidies and things of that nature. So if that idea, the idea of going into a courtroom where you don't know what the rules are going to be and you're judged based on what you are instead of who you are and what you've done and accomplished or done wrong, if that scares you, then imagine an entire society operating that way and what the politicians would do with that type of immense power. And the assumption by progressives is that since the power would be in the hands of the more progressed, the moral elite, they simply wouldn't fall victim to the petty trappings of power or corruption that other less progressed people might. Uh, we only have to open a history book to see where that assumption leads over and over again without fail. Now, there's a lot worth discussing in more depth here. This was a very superficial introduction to these concepts. Uh, but that's all we have time for now. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll leave suggestions for more videos on this channel, and we'll be able to discuss these topics, hopefully with some guests in the near future. Uh, Thanks, and goodbye.